Welcome to the Floyd Memorial Library podcast, where we sit down with the people who give shape, texture, and voice to the stories that matter here on the North Fork of Long Island and sometimes far beyond. Some of our guests are rooted here by generations. Others join us from elsewhere to share their work, their perspective, or their connection to this community. But all bring something that resonates, something that adds to the ongoing conversation. We talk about what's changing, what's worth holding on to, and the currents of history, both quiet and loud, that run through this place. I'm your host, Christopher Bianchi, and for episode 191, we sit down with Jeff Szabo, Chief Executive Officer of the Suffolk County Water Authority, one of the largest groundwater suppliers in the nation, serving nearly 1.2 million residents across Long Island. Under his leadership, SCWA has strengthened its commitment to innovation, water quality, and sustainability, ensuring that future generations have clean, reliable drinking water across the region. In this conversation, we focus on the North Fork, a region whose unique geography and aquifer system make water both vital and vulnerable. We talk about the recent water shortages, the proposed $35 million pipeline from Flanders to Laurel, and how the Suffolk County Water Authority is balancing long-term sustainability with community concerns about development and environmental impact. Jeff also shares insights from his national work as president of the Association of Metropolitan Water Agencies and what lessons from across the country can help guide the North Fork's future. So I hope you enjoy episode 191 with Jeff Szabo. This episode was recorded August 18th, 2025. Thank you so much for coming on the Floyd Memorial Library podcast today. It's really great to have you on today.
Thank you so much. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Thank you. And so in the beginning, I'd like to just start off if you can give us a little introduction about yourself and your path to becoming CEO of the Suffolk County Water Authority.
Great. So I'm born and raised in Long Island. I grew up in Bohemia. My parents, my father came from Hungary in 1956 during the 1956 Hungarian Revolution. He came here with some of his friends and settled here on the island. My mom and her family, she's second generation from Czechoslovakia, so I'm half Czech, half Hungarian. I grew up in Bohemia, which makes sense, right?
Yes.
In sort of the center of the island. I went to college locally. I went to LIU Southampton, so I'm quite familiar with the East End. And I got a bachelor's degree in political science and history. And I always thought that I would spend my career in government in some capacity. Since a young child, I always had a affinity for government and how government works and history and learning from the past and trying to see what you can do to improve people's lives and things like that. And didn't necessarily think I'd ever be a chief executive officer of the Water Authority. But it's interesting how life's paths sort of, opportunities come your way and you make the most of them.
Yes. And just coming out of high school, did you know exactly what you wanted to do as a career?
Not exactly. As a kid, and I think very few actually do. Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? I think it's a sort of a tremendous amount of pressure to put on a young individual who's just trying to become an adult and make decisions, on their own. I certainly didn't, other than, maybe it was working for the local government or the federal government. So I knew I wanted to be a part of that. In what capacity, I didn't know. I did initially after college, I got a job working for the local legislature, the county legislature. And from there, I worked 3 or 4 years for an elected official at the legislature. Then I worked in New York State government for a couple of years working for a state assemblyman. And then for 6.5 years, I was a deputy county executive in Suffolk County. Suffolk County, huge operations, tremendous budget. At that time, something like 8,000 county employees, overseeing everything from, the Parks Department and Public Works, the health, social services. you name it, just a really wide variety of different divisions and departments within the auspices. Certainly, I think it's, if I recall correctly, bigger than 13 states, as far as population served and size of the government and its budget itself. And at that point, I was chief of staff and deputy county executive. So I had half of the county departments reporting to me, the commissioners and those folks. And then I had the county executives' immediate staff, the 100 or so different individuals working as county executive assistants in some of the departments within the Office of County Executive. And after 6.5 years, I was approached to come to the Water Authority by the board member at that time. And I sort of, scratched my head thinking, I'm interested in other opportunities. It might be public sector, it might be private sector. But I'm not an engineer. I certainly don't know much about water other than turning on a tap and drinking it. So it took a while. Meeting with a couple of the board members at that time, they sat down and they said, I told them more about what I did and sort of what I thought my skill set was, and they said that's pretty much exactly what we're looking for. We have engineers. We have attorneys. We have our laboratory run by chemists and scientists. We need somebody to sort of bring it all together, to be an administrator, to be an executive and give it a little bit of a vision and to look to the future. And it clicked in my head, thinking that, this is something that I could do and I hopefully do very well.
Mm-hmm. And what year did you start?
So I was appointed CEO in the spring of 2010, and I served in sort of a interim position for several months just prior to that, for about 6 months or so.
Mm-hmm. And before we get into the North Fork, I wanted to ask just if you could give us an overview of the Suffolk County Water Authority and what the operation looks like and what you cover in terms of Suffolk County water.
Sure. Great question. The Suffolk County Water Authority, it's a public benefit corporation. It's not part of county government. Mm-hmm. We were established by the New York State Legislature, by an act of the state legislature in 1937. At that time, this is, post-World War, this is during, pre-World War II, you had... for the United States served in World War II, 1941 to 1945. So you had in New York State several authorities being created to do things like manage municipal water supply and other things, the MTA and many across the state. A gentleman by the name of Robert Moses, who was extremely influential in not only state politics but New York City politics, certainly was somebody who contributed a lot to that. But we were created, and then we really didn't come into operation until 1951. Mm-hmm. And we started by acquiring some of the private water districts in Suffolk County and started in the early 50s. Today, we serve about 85% of the population, right? Mm-hmm. We deliver drinking water, tap water to your home. So when you turn the faucet on, for most of the folks in Suffolk County, they're drinking our water. There are still some water providers that are separate from us. The Riverhead Water District, they're independent of us. Hampton Bays Water District, serving a few thousand customers, they are separate. In the western part of the county, there are also a couple over there. In Greenport here, we serve a lot of Greenport, but not the village. We wholesale water to the village itself. Okay. But we've had a long-term relationship with Greenport dating back to the mid-1990s.
Yes.
So we operate without taxing power. We have all of our revenues, or overwhelming majority of our revenues, come from customer water use, consumption, water use. A small percentage comes from cell providers who utilize our infrastructure with antennas and things like that. We have board members that are appointed, 5 board members that are appointed by the county legislature, and they set policy. They hire the staff, including myself, and then they let me manage and sort of operate it. We're fortunate. We've got a chairman right now who is extremely engaged, Charlie Lefkowitz, who's been chairman for a couple of years now, and brings a business sense to what we do, and is always providing insight and thoughts about some of our initiatives. And I'm been very fortunate. Our board members for my entire tenure as chief executive, I've been very fortunate to have a group that likes to collaborate, that likes to be informed, but doesn't like to micromanage. And at the end of the day, I think the thing that's most important is they really care and take serious what we do.
And even for our listeners that may not know, what makes, since we're on the North Fork, what makes the North Fork water system unique, and what are some of the biggest challenges facing this area?
Great question again. So the North Fork is a little different than the water supply in the North Fork is different than other areas in the county. You just don't have the water availability, sort of the depth of the aquifer. It doesn't really exist like it does in Western Suffolk. And by that, I mean, millions of years ago, right, when Long Island was created and formed, we have the ability to pull water from one of the largest sole source aquifers in the nation, right below our feet. And in Western Suffolk, many of our wells could be several hundred feet deep, 600, 700, 800 feet deep in Western Suffolk. There's a lot of water there. As you move further east to the forks, especially the North Fork and Southold, that aquifer becomes very thin. So there's not a lot of water to pull from. So we have, over the years, done the best that we can to try to make sure that we take care of the aquifer, don't over pump, don't pull too much water from the aquifer, because that can lead to some other problems like saltwater intrusion and things like that. So it's a fragile system out here.
And recently, like you said, the North Fork, I think, has been faced with critical water shortages, leading to lawn watering restrictions. Can you explain why some of these measures have been triggered recently, and what residents can do to maybe help preserve the water?
Thank you. It's very interesting. So we supply and pump, on average, 75 billion gallons a year, right? Our customers, we have about 400,000 accounts serving 1.2 million people, 1.2 of the 1.5 million in Suffolk County. And every year we pump about 75 billion gallons. Each year, more than that is recharged by rainfall back into the aquifer. So that's a good thing. We're not taking out, I get this question sometimes, is there ever going to be a point where we're going to run out of water? And based on all the information that we've seen in the scientific studies by USGS and other engineering firms and folks who spend a career, sort of looking at this stuff, we're in really good shape. But that's not really a threat or a concern. But what we have difficulty doing is making sure that the people who have access to safe drinking water, that there's enough of it to meet that demand. So we build our system to meet peak demand. Those early in the morning. Yes, those early morning hours. Typically in the summer, after we've had consecutive days of no rainfall, very hot temperatures, and everyone is getting up and they have programmed their irrigation systems to go off at 1 o'clock in the morning, and they typically run several hours until 5, 6, 7 in the morning. That's happening, and then people are getting up. They're going to work. The kids are getting up. They're doing what they need to do. So all of our elevated storage tanks, where we hold thousands of gallons in reserve, all of the wells are running. All of the elevated tanks start to drain because everybody is using water at the same time. What we've tried to do, and this is something that I've been very fortunate, our board has been very supportive. We've set aside money in our budget to make sure that we communicate with the public and we spread the message that we're all stewards. We all have the ability to play a part.
Yes.
And I think it's important to let folks know that individually we can make a change, right? And if everyone just did a little bit and we shaved off that peak, we would ensure that we would never have an issue if there was a fire, God forbid, and we didn't have enough pressure to meet demand, or there was, again, potentially an issue at a hospital where we ran out of water and weren't able to take care of, or a skilled nursing facility, or things like that on the emergency services side. So what we've been trying to do is everyone can take part and do a little bit to help reduce overall consumption. We have passed a resolution requiring folks to water based on their house schedule, odd even days. Our problem is we don't have enforcement power. So we can promote that, we can set the tone, but people need to comply. Most people want to do the right thing. I think most people they understand that there's, if we all, like I said earlier, if we all play a role, we can make a difference, and nobody wants to run out of water. So we've passed that resolution. We have also provided significant rebates and customer credits to folks who want to change out some of their in-home devices and use low-flow devices and things like that. We offer hundreds of dollars in rebates. If folks are interested, they can reach out to the Water Authority, and we can give specific information about what's eligible. The other thing I think is important is this happens over time, right? So change and habits change. It may be, I don't hope it's not this long, but it could be a generation, right? It could be post World War II build out of Long Island, right? When everyone moved from to the suburbs, they want, what do they want?
Lawns.
Right. No longer a stoop. Right? They wanted more than just a front stoop. And, a concrete sidewalk. They wanted the ability to have a green lawn, and they wanted to obviously, plant and irrigate and design and landscape it. And Long Island is known for that, right? Wherever you go, whether you're in Nassau County or Suffolk County, certainly we use a lot of our water that we pump that costs a lot of money to get out of the ground. It certainly oftentimes we're running it through our systems to ensure that it meets all regulations at the state and federal level, and then it's being put back onto the lawn to make sure everything is green. So we're very committed to ensuring that we have that dialogue with residents to let them know what they should be doing. You certainly don't need to water every day. Every other day certainly works. And it's not just that. There's also things you can do in home. We have a program where we have folks from our staff by making appointments, they can come in and they can give a consultation on best practices. What can you do in your home, right? And it's simple things. It's how often do you let the water run when you're brushing your teeth?
Yes.
Right. A lot of it makes sense, but we have a whole program. We go through existing water use, your current charges. And then we take a look and see what can we do to reduce them. And 9 times out of 10, when we come back and do that second review, we've been able to give the folks enough information to reduce their water bill.
Yes. And just getting up to today, to talk about the pipeline from Flanders to Laurel, the Suffolk County Water Authority is proposing a $35 million pipeline to bolster Southold's water supply. Why is this project necessary, and what are the expected benefits?
Very good question again. Boy, you're really well prepared, I got to tell you. Very nice job. So part of our concern long-term is being able to supply safe, potable drinking water to the residents. There isn't the quantity of water in Southold because, as we talked about earlier, just the makeup of the aquifer. It just isn't there. And we think, our experts think, even with conservation initiatives like ours, and the town of Southold has done a very good job. I give Supervisor Krupski and his team there a lot of credit in being creative and trying to come up with initiatives that would capture rainwater, reclaim rainwater, promote conservation, and we enjoy working with them quite a bit. But it's not going to be enough. It's not going to be the answer long-term to water availability. So what we want to do is move water from where we have it, which is south of here, in Flanders, and move it along an 8.5-mile stretch through the township of Riverhead to the town line of Southold. A lot of Southold already has public water. A lot of Southold already has water main and customers are served. We have over 10,000 accounts today in Southold. What we're concerned about is demand, is ensuring that they have adequate water pressure, that they have a supply to, in case, like I said, there's an emergency or a fire, or just meeting normal household demand. The other complicating factor is there really isn't enough property. So we've done this for years. For years, our answer was buy more property. Buy a piece of property in Southold, do some test wells, check water quality, and then, develop a well, spend $1 million developing a well field, put treatment on if needed to remove pesticides or herbicides or something like that, and you have another well field. The problem is you don't have the property and you don't have the water. So what we want to do is move it from where we have it existing. We're taking it from Flanders. We don't need any additional wells to be developed. We need a booster pump to move it, but we don't need any additional infrastructure.
Mm-hmm. But just with some local officials and residents have been concerned about the pipeline, including environmental impact or zoning, and whether it's truly needed. How do you respond to those concerns, and have alternatives been considered?
So we're presently in the process of revising our environmental impact statement. This past spring, we held public scoping sessions, one in each of the 3 townships. Some of them were very well attended. We solicited comments from elected officials and residents and all interested parties. So we have a lot of questions, and what we're doing right now is answering those questions. We're going through line item by line item, being as transparent and as forthcoming as we possibly can be. That process will take a few months. I've committed to sharing that revised document once we've answered the questions, making it available to the public again, and then having another series of scoping sessions with the public so that they can come after reviewing the document and comment once again. I think that this is what we do, right? Mm-hmm. We're a large utility. We're in the street every day. We have 6,000 miles of water main. 6,000 miles, mm-hmm. right? From Melville in the west to Montauk in the east, 6,000 miles. Yes. That's enough to get from New York City to Siberia, mm-hmm. right? It really is when you think about it. So I'm very proud of our record of doing work in the street and communicating the work that we're doing to the general public. We have pledged and remain very committed to going out of our way to ensure that residents are informed of the plan, as we move along and begin to lay the pipe and move it from Flanders to the Southold town line. This isn't opening up an 8.5-mile stretch and leaving it open, an open roadway for months or a year or so. This is doing a couple of 100 feet a day, right? A couple of 100 feet, then doing what we need to do, coming in, filling it, patching it, moving on to the next couple of 100 feet. So this is something that can be done relatively quickly, and I think it can be done in a way that satisfies residents' concerns, or if they have environmental concerns. Again, I'm proud of our record of working in the street and making sure that we communicate with the residents.
Mm-hmm. And have you involved the North Fork community in some of the process with the project, having open forums or ways for the residents to have their voice heard?
Yeah, I think we've had numerous meetings with community organizations, civic organizations. We've held meetings on our own out here talking about the project and the benefits of the project. As I mentioned, we plan to come back again in a couple of months when we have a revised environmental document to share that and to talk about that. There's a group of individuals from the Water Authority. I'm not sure if I'm able to go. It's at a date in October. I think some officials from the health department, they're coming to a meeting out in Orient to talk about water quality and at least in part this project. So those conversations are ongoing. I encourage people to reach out if they have questions, and if they can reach out to me directly in my office. this is part of the process. This is something that we're committed to doing, and I look forward to hearing from residents. I do want to point out there are certain areas, like in Orient, where you have some of the worst drinking water in the entire county. There are tests from the Suffolk County Health Department have indicated the highest levels of PFAS in all of Suffolk County in Orient. And there's a vocal group of residents that very much want the Water Authority to come in and to supply safe drinking water. And I think that those voices need to be heard too. I want to clarify too, the way that we're looking at this project. Let's not forget, the first phase of it is a infrastructure improvement, right? Okay. We're bringing water to Southold Town Line to add to the existing infrastructure. There's no new main. We're not coming into Southold and laying another 10,000 feet of main and expanding there. We're bringing water to the town line. That's an improvement to our existing system because we need that additional capacity. The second phase in the Orient section, if that ever occurred, and it's I don't know if it ever will, we're looking at it environmentally because we wanted to be inclusive of the entire township. So we wanted to make sure that we weren't criticized for not looking at the entire town. So we included Orient. However, that process is different. That would be extension of water main. And the residents in that community would have to tell us, yes, we want to be connected to the Water Authority, and then we would do our there's a policy and procedure that explains exactly how we would move forward, but we would cost it out. There's a charge that they would pay. They would have to connect, not only pay for the water main, but also the connection from the road to their home, their service line, and there are things that would have to take place. And from what I keep hearing is that the community is split. Some folks want it, some folks don't want it. Some folks that think that additional water will cause development. And I've heard this for a long time now, and my easy answer is, it's not the Water Authority. We have no jurisdiction over development or zoning. That's the responsibility of the town of Southold and the local jurisdictions. They control it. They decide if there's going to be development, and not the Suffolk County Water Authority. So I think to point the finger at us and to make it seem as if we would, bring development to the town of Southold, I don't think that's fair.
Okay. Yeah, because that has been brought up. But you mentioned PFAS in Orient, but I guess just in general for what you cover in Suffolk County, has the Suffolk County Water Authority been proactive with PFAS and other contaminants? Can you describe the monitoring and safeguards in place?
Sure. So this topic has gotten a lot of attention over the years. What they call emerging contaminants, and certainly PFAS is one of them. PFAS, sort of a forever chemical because it's difficult to remove from drinking water. You'll find PFAS in firefighting foam and sort of man-made chemicals and non-stick pans and cookware and things like that. Fortunately, for the folks who live in Suffolk County, the Suffolk County Water Authority has been leading the way in rolling out treatment at our different well fields to remove PFAS, to bring it down to non-detect. So New York State has a standard that they set of 10 parts per million. And long before that standard came into effect, we complied with it. We were a step or two ahead. I'm really proud of that. And now you have the federal government, the EPA has set a standard of 4 parts per trillion that takes effect in 2031. Fortunately for the people living in Suffolk County, we already comply with that much lower 4 parts. So that rule doesn't go into effect for several years, but we already comply with it. And and there's been a lot of debate at the federal level. Should they lower it? Should they raise it? Should they get rid of it? There's, different administrations have different interpretations of what they want to do and what the priorities are. And there's a discussion now about PFAS and other compounds. There are thousands of compounds within that PFAS family. So we are testing and we're ensuring that what we find, we obviously remove and make sure it's not getting into drinking water. But our position is they can do all that, they can talk about it, they can debate it, they can set rules. We here at the Suffolk County Water Authority, we're treating to non-detect. So the water that you're getting from your tap when you open it up is going to meet or exceed all federal standards. And we're really proud of that.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And we talked about the pipeline, but are there any other modernization efforts or long-term plans in place to ensure safe, reliable water service for the North Fork?
Well, I think when we look at the North Fork and we look at things that we can do, long-term plans to ensure that we're meeting the demands of the customers and sort of being at the forefront, our core mission will remain the same. Our core mission will ensure that, we're the quiet utility, right? People don't think about us. And, I hate to say it, they may take us, what's the term? I'm losing it in my head here.
Not for...
When it's not there, that upends, someone's life, their day and their livelihood. So we want to make sure that we're able to provide that service, and we do it in a way that meets or exceeds all federal regulations. We're looking for things to be innovative, right? Clearly, when you look to the future, we have, like I said, 6,000 miles of water main. So aging infrastructure is a big concern of mine. We spend millions of dollars a year replacing and repairing water main. Some of the water main in Southold, when you look, you need to repair it and replace it. Over the next several years, we will have to look to do another meter change-out program. Well, each individual meter at each customer's home will have to be replaced with more modern technology. Meters typically have a 15 to 20-year lifespan, and we're almost coming up on that. We're a few years away from that, so we're already thinking about what does the future look like. Some of the advantages with a meter change-out program, most of the technology out there would allow for customers to get information, like current information about use. So they'll know, instead of getting their quarterly bill and scratch their head and say, holy smokes, how did I use so much water this billing period? They'll know immediately through a software program how much water they're using, and they may be more cognizant to reduce it. Or if there's, God forbid, a leak, or there's an issue at the home with the service line or something like that, they'll be aware of it. So it gives customers more information in a much faster way.
Yes. And just looking at other regions of the country, a lot of them are dealing with water shortages, even out west. What lessons, or have you learned any lessons from those areas, or just how they manage their water supply area, or even some linkages between those areas and comparing, maybe, for example, like Las Vegas? Or
very good question. So I'm fortunate to serve not only as CEO of the Suffolk County Water Authority, but I'm also president of the Association of Metropolitan Water Agencies, which is a national organization comprised of the largest municipal drinking water suppliers. I've served on the board for many years, and just about next month I'll conclude my first year as president. And what that organization has done, it's an organization, obviously, that shares, information with each of the different providers and best practices and that type of stuff, which is always extremely rewarding. You get to show your peers and brag about your agency in front of your peers, and they also advocate and advance legislation, and they weigh in on regulatory matters in Washington, D.C. So it's a very good, very beneficial group that certainly does a great job in D.C. advocating for the industry's needs. But what I've seen and learned is that there are many agencies, like you said, primarily in Western United States and Southwest, that have the sort of were us 20, 40, 30 years ago, right? They've looked at conservation. They've addressed conservation. So we have learned a tremendous amount from them because they're so many years ahead of us. My predecessor as chairman of the Association of Metropolitan Water Agencies, John Ensminger, is the head of the Las Vegas Water Authority. He and I were on a podcast together, my own podcast called What About Water, where we had an East versus West discussion, and we learned a lot about things that they had done to reclaim every drop of water and to minimize use as much as possible. Many of those practices now we're trying to utilize here in Suffolk County.
Yes. And just looking ahead for water going forward, you mentioned there could be water shortage in the future or worried about contamination or other chemicals. What do you think is the biggest challenge going forward, even for just the country as a whole, not just Suffolk County?
So this is something that I spend some time thinking about, and I've said for a long time, I think, across the globe, wars are being fought over water. Right? Mm-hmm. The future, the next goal is water, right? Safe, potable drinking water. When you look at how things are, climate change and how things are changing, states are suing other states here in the United States over water rights and water availability. You have countries that are spending millions and millions of dollars for desalination plants and trying to take salt water and convert it into potable drinking water. Here in the United States, you'll see that it's not quite at that point, but there is litigation. There's certainly tremendous amount of controversy and debate about use of water from the Colorado River, and certainly in California, they're having their water wars. They exist, and it's only going to intensify as climate changes. So what you try to do is, you learn best practices. You try to work with others. Here in New York State, in our region, like I said, we're in a very good position because the aquifer is plentiful. If it stopped raining today, we would have enough water to last generations below our feet. That's a good thing. What we want to do is make sure that we use it in a smart way and ensure that it's here for generations to come. Some of the concerns, I think, testing methods. So we are required to test for about 200 chemical compounds by the New York State and the EPA. The Water Authority tests for more than twice that. So we on our own do more testing than we're required to. This is something I wish I could take credit for as chief executive, but they've been doing it even before I got here. We test for more than we're required to. It's the right thing to do. And all of that information, all of that testing data, pre-treatment and post-treatment is available. We have to, by law, supply all of our testing results to the public. They're made available in our annual water quality statement that folks can get a copy of. We have staff in our laboratory that will guide people through it if they need help. One of the things that we've tried to do year over year is to try to make that annual water quality report as user-friendly as possible. How do we speak to folks in a way that they understand what's in their water and what we're doing to ensure that it's safe? So I think as you look to the future, you'll have greater scrutiny on removing chemical compounds from drinking water as detection limits are reduced. So every agency, we're fortunate here that we're one step ahead. We've been able to stay ahead on the PFAS front, on the 1,4-dioxane front, but there may be other chemicals. There may be other chemicals that come, and we want to make sure that we deploy treatment to all of our almost 600 wells to remove anything that may get into their public drinking water system.
Yes. And is the Pine Barrens, is that one area that provides a source of drinking water, the aquifer?
So there's a lot of, the Pine Barrens is sort of a land that has been set aside and protected by an act of the state legislature many years ago now. So there's certainly water there. It may be some of the best water in the island, in the region for sure. But the aquifer, we have water from, like I said, from Montauk to Melville at various depths. So here in Southold, you may have a 30, 40-foot deep well, right? In, Brentwood or, mid-central Suffolk County, that well may be 700, 800 feet deep.
Mm-hmm.
So the water availability is different.
Yes. I wanted to just ask, because there are, I think within Southold, there are trying to, whether it's not regulation, but maybe for irrigation, to try to limit the amount of water, whether it's for lawns or farms. But do you see that further west as much with the lawns? And because obviously there's the residents' property rights in terms of how much they want to use. But if people weren't aware or conscious of how they use the water, would you be worried with how everyone was not as conscious with how they just water every day? Or
Well, I think what you're starting to see several years ago now, our legal team at the Water Authority drafted a local law related to water use, and it encouraged, required odd even watering. All right, and then we circulated that to local municipalities, the different townships and villages, to see if there was interest in them picking it up. Because we don't have enforcement powers, the county, town, and the villages could. We had some discussions with some of the villages at that time. Supervisor Krupski from Southold, who was a county legislator at that time, proposed a bill at the county level to require restrictions and to promote conservation. It wasn't approved by the legislature, and he took largely that initiative and then brought it to Southold when he became town supervisor, and they just recently passed an ordinance that would promote that. So I think there'll be continued interest in everyone working together to promote conservation. Whether we're going to get to the point where it's required, like they do in some jurisdictions in Nassau County, there are restrictions. Okay. They do have some municipalities that have enforcement, and whether it works or not, I'm not sure. I think the point could be made that, is it worth having a police officer stop at your home because you're watering after 6 o'clock at night or whatever, when that officer's time could be maybe better used solving a crime or doing something like that? But here in Suffolk, that conversation will continue, and I think we need to be a part of it. We're happy to be a part of it. We look forward to working with the local jurisdictions to effectuate change.
Yes. And I think I had one other question, just looking ahead, just to our North Fork residents. What do you hope they take away from the Suffolk County Water Authority's work, and what your vision for sustainable water service and community protection in the region is?
So, I want them to feel comfortable and confident that we have a team of dedicated employees. I have over 600 employees, both on the union and management side. Everything from customer service staff that pick up the phone when you have a question or a concern, to technicians that are out doing the customer service role and taking a sample from your home, to engineers, IT, laboratory, construction maintenance. We run the entire gamut. These people are really committed to ensuring that the water you drink when you turn that faucet on is safe, right? And it meets and exceeds all standards. So if there's one takeaway, I want folks to know that, hey, we're there to make sure that we meet or exceed standards, and this drinking water is safe to drink. It may cost us many, many millions of dollars, right, to treat the water and to put treatment in to remove the compounds that are in there. But at the end of the day, when you open the faucet and you take that glass, it's going to meet and exceed any regulation that's in place by the state or federal government.
Yes. I think we covered everything. But I want to thank you so much for taking the time to come on today and share your story and all the work you're doing in Suffolk County and talking about water here and on the North Fork. So thank you so much for coming on.
I really appreciate the opportunity. I've enjoyed it very much. Thank you.
Well, I hope you enjoy episode 191 with Jeff Szabo. I want to thank you for listening to the Floyd Memorial Library podcast, and we'll see you next time.